Hello everyone, and welcome to If You Give a Mouse a Meeple, a how to play video series that goes over the rules and teaches you how to play some of your favorite board games. My name's Aaron from the Board Game Brothers, and the game that we're going to go over today is Catan. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so this is the setup for Catan. The way you set up the board is you take these hex tiles, you flip them all face down, you shuffle them up, and then you put them one by one onto the board, and then you create it that way. You also get these little tokens, which have numbers on one side and letters on another, ranging from A all the way to R. So you flip them upside down, put them in alphabetical order, and then you start with A anywhere on the outside of the board. So I started here, so it was A, B, C, D, and you keep going counterclockwise inwards in a circular fashion, and then that's how you place all those tiles. Then you flip them back up to their number side. You skip placing a token on this tile, which is the desert tile, and then you put this token here instead. It's a thief token, and we'll explain that later. You also get these little ships, and you can put them all face down, shuffle them up, and then just place them on the outside of the board on their symbols. And that's how you get variable setup for the whole board. You place your resource cards down, you place your two global achievements down, and then you also have development cards that you shuffle and place down. Everybody gets their corresponding tokens that consist of roads, settlements, cities, and you just place them in front of you, and that's what you're going to be used to build onto the board. So at the beginning of the game, we're going to do a 3-player game. Let's say red goes first. You're allowed to place one road and one settlement anywhere on the board. And then blue will go second, so then they take their turn. They place one road and one settlement. And roads have to be placed on these paths, and settlements are placed on these intersections. There are more rules, but we'll go over how to place these later. But let's say orange goes here. So in a 3-player game, it went red, blue, orange, and since orange was the last player, they're going to place a second one first, so they're actually going to place theirs here. And then we go backwards order, so now blue would get to place theirs next, so we'll place blue over here, and red, we'll place red all the way over here. Okay, so after you do that, wherever you place your second settlement, you'll get resource cards depending on the tiles that you're touching. So the different resources and the different things that they produce are hills produce bricks, forests produce lumber, mountains produce ore, fields produce grain, pastures produce wool, and the desert produces nothing. And they're all color coordinated, so the wood makes, or the forest makes the lumber, so you can see the colors are the same. The mountains make the ore. So since this was red's second placement, and that's their settlement, they would get one wool and one lumber, and they would just get those cards from their decks and just put them into their hand, and that's their starting resources for the game. So everybody does that, and then the game's ready to go. So the first phase on your turn is the production phase. So the turn player would roll, and in this example, they got 4. So you look anywhere on the board, and anywhere that there's a 4, that person would get the resources that it produces. So for example, this would produce wool, and since red has a settlement right here on this intersection, touching 4, they would get 1 wool. So they would just grab one of the wool and put it to their hands. Blue, orange don't get anything from this 4, but this 4 also activated, and it's going to produce wood or lumber. So orange actually has 2 touching, so they're going to actually get 2 of that resource. So the more that you have on one specific number, the more resources you can get. So you can build out that way, trying to plan to think, oh, if I put more settlements here and there, then I'll be able to get specific resources. But basically, whatever you roll, that's the number that you're going to activate for resources to be produced. There are some other effects, like if you happen to roll a 7 on your turn, then anyone who has more than 7 cards in their hand discards half of them rounded down. So you want to keep a lot of cards in your hand. They're your resources. That's how you make things. But if you get too much and someone rolls a 7, then they are going to make you lose half the cards in your hand. Also, when you roll a 7, that's how the thief comes into play. So the thief doesn't have any number. He doesn't activate by rolling a die besides 7. When that happens, the player can move the thief from the space he was on to any other space, negating that space's production. So if you moved it here, then this tile, if you roll a 4, does not activate anymore. It only activates this other 4 instead of 2 of them. So this one just doesn't produce anything as long as the thief's there. Another thing that the thief does when it moves is wherever he moved to, if there is a player with a settlement touching that tile, then the thief, the person whose turn activated the thief, they can also steal a card from that player's hand. So that's one way to get cards from someone if they don't want to trade with you. We'll go over trade in a little while. But that's the production phase. Any number that you roll activates and produces, and any settlement touching that production square will get you one of the resources. Except for the thief, if he's rolled it with a 7, he moves around and then he'll negate that number until he's moved again. So that's the first step, the production step. So the next thing you're going to do is the trading phase or trading step. So the way that works, let's say it's Red's turn. Red can choose the trade either with domestic trade, which is with players, or maritime trade, which is with the game itself. So the way you trade with players is if Red wanted to trade for a wool, they could just say, I have a brick. Does anybody want to trade wool for brick? And orange or blue can decide if they want to trade with him. But orange and blue cannot trade with each other, only with red because it's red player's turn. So that's how the domestic trade works. And then you can do the maritime trade, which is the generic trade of 4 of any one resource for 1 of any resource you want in return. You can also do the harbor trading. So for example, red's right here. Since red's at this harbor, they're allowed to do this specific trade, which is trade 2 ore for 1 of anything. So all of them have different effects around the board, but they're usually 3 of anything for 1 of anything, or 2 of a specific for 1 of anything. So that's how trading happens with players and with the game itself. The third thing you can do on your turn is the building phase. So the way the building phase works is everybody has this little tile, the sheet, reference sheet in front of you that tells you what you can build and what the cost is to build it. So you can build roads, settlements, cities, and you can also get development cards, which is this stack. And they all have their different costs. So road would cost 1 wood and 1 brick. To make a settlement, you need a wood, a brick, wheat, and a wool. And a city needs 2 wheat and 3 ores. And to get a development card, you need 1 wheat, 1 wool, and 1 ore. There are rules for whatever you build of how you place them and how they work. So the way roads work is you get your road tile and you place it touching either a settlement, a city, or another road tile. So red, if they were building a road, they can place it here, or they can place it over here because it's still touching their own. You can't place it here because there's a gap. You have to place it so that it's connecting your colored tiles with the rest of your tiles. So that's how you expand onto the board. So the way you play a settlement is if red expanded with a road right there, they can also place a settlement here if they paid the cost. When you place a settlement onto an intersection, there has to be no other settlement or city within the 3 other touching intersections. So red's allowed to play this red here because there is nothing built here, here, or here. Other colors, roads are allowed. Red can still place it here as long as there's nothing on the intersections built. So, for example, if red didn't want to build a road at all and instead they only had enough resources to build a settlement, they wouldn't be able to at this moment in time. They can't place it here because there's nothing built here, nothing built here, but there is something built here, even though it's their own. So there has to be nothing else built in the touching intersections for you to be able to place either a settlement or a city. So the way cities work is cities can be placed and they replace a settlement. So you would take the settlement off and you would place your city there. The benefit of cities is that they count as 2 points for the end game scoring, and they also produce twice as much of whatever is rolled. So, for example, if a 3 was rolled, this 3 would activate, and red would actually get 2 wool instead of 1 because the cities produce 2 of it. So cities are good. They're worth more points. They produce twice as much resources, and yeah, they're really good. So we'll just place this back for right now. The next thing you do is get a development card. So the development cards, what they do are there's 3 different types. There's either progress cards, which give you some sort of effect, either building extra roads or taking cards or doing something. There are night cards, and night cards have special effects. The way they work is when you place a night card, you get to move the thief anywhere around to any other spot, following the regular thief rules of negating that spot and then taking a resource of a person who has a touching settlement or city. And then the knights also, the first person that gets 3 knights in front of them gets to take this global achievement in front of them. It's whoever has 3 knights first gets this card, and this card is worth 2 points going for end game scoring. This can shift around though, so if someone has 3 knights and they take this in front of them, they have 2 more points to try to reach the 10 point to win the game. But if someone throughout the game gets 4 knights, then they can actually take this from that player, and now they have the extra 2 points. So this can move around depending who has the most knights in play. And then the last card type there are just straight up victory point cards. And the way the victory point cards work is just you place them at the end of the game, but they're just worth 1 point. Another global achievement, so we explained this global achievement. This other one over here is the longest road. So that activates actually when there are 5 roads, at least 5 roads going from one player. So red, if red had this set up, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roads, automatically activates this. They get this tile, they place it in front of them, and it's worth 2 points to see if they can get 10 points to win at the end of the game. This can also be taken just like the night one, where if someone, like if blue placed 6 roads in a row, they would take this from red because now they have the longest road. So whoever has the longest road and it fluctuates, it keeps checking, they'll get this thing, which is worth 2 points. So biggest army, which is the night cards in front of you, gives you 2 points. The longest road gives you 2 points. So that's how those cards work. And that's all the development cards. So in Catan, what you are trying to do is be the first to expand your settlements and cities and gain 10 points. And the way you get points are each settlement is worth 1 point, each city is worth 2 points. There are 2 global achievements, the longest road and the largest army, which are 2 points each. And there are also development cards, which have victory cards in them, which are worth 1 point each. And the first player to reach 10 points wins the game. And that's how you play Catan. So Mousie, what did you think of the game? Did you like it?
I loved it. I'm new to playing board games, and this one was such a fun game. Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. But this is just the beginning. There's a whole world out there of board games for you to learn and play.
What? Really? I can't wait to play them all. Yeah!
I love your enthusiasm. Well, that's the end of our video. My name's Aaron, and until next time, remember, if you give a mouse a meeple, he may want to play.
Yeah!
Bye.